Jake found him in the lunchroom, and immediately knew he was right. A group of their friends had gathered around Aiden. Everyone was listening. Everyone looked excited. Jake slowed as he approached. He didn't need to ask what Aiden was talking about. He already knew. The cemetery run. Aiden had the same look Casey had worn the year before. That same wild excitement. That same certainty that he'd found something no one else knew about. This is bullshit. David's voice cut through the group. The cemetery run is just a story for little kids. It's real, Aiden insisted. Jake and I were there last night. We got so much candy. And we could have gotten even more if we'd brought more bags. Jake stopped walking. His stomach tightened. They had promised. They weren't supposed to tell anyone. David noticed him. "Hey, Jake." He waved him over. "Is it true?" Jake looked at Aiden. His friend stared back. Jake wasn't sure what to do. He could deny everything. He could walk away. He could tell them it was all a lie. But Aiden was his best friend. And leaving him to explain everything alone somehow felt worse. So Jake nodded. "Yeah. It's true." David scoffed. "No way. Did you bring the candy?" Jake started shaking his head. But before he could answer, Aiden opened his backpack. He pulled out the pillowcase. Then dumped it onto the lunchroom table. Full-sized candy bars spilled everywhere. The entire group went silent. For a second, nobody moved. Then everyone started talking at once. "Holy shit. Can I have one? Where did you get all this?" Aiden laughed. He handed candy to anyone who reached for it. Then he pulled out copies of the map. Printed copies. Enough for everyone. Jake stared at them. His stomach sank. One by one, the children took the candy. Then they took the maps. They were excited. Curious. Already talking about Halloween. Already discussing when they could try the cemetery run themselves. Jake said nothing. He waited. And waited. Until every other kid had finally left. Only then did he turn to Aiden. "What are you doing?" His voice was low. Angry. "We said we weren't going to tell anyone." Aiden looked down at the empty table. Jake's anger was real. But underneath it was something much worse. Fear. The nightmare was still fresh in his head. The voice at the window. The smile. The words. Bone and sinew. Everything was beginning to feel connected. And now Aiden had just handed pieces of the cemetery run to half the school. Jake stared at the last copy of the map still sitting on the table. He suddenly realized something. Casey had found the path. They had followed it. And now, they were showing other people how to find it too. Yeah. Aiden's hands were trembling. I know. I'm sorry, Jake. He swallowed hard. But I had a dream last night. Jake's expression changed. Casey was in it. The room seemed to grow colder. He came into my bedroom. He told me that if I didn't give copies of the map to the other kids. Aiden's voice cracked. The things from the forest would come into my room. Jake didn't interrupt. They were going to take my bones. For a moment, neither boy spoke. Jake believed him. How could he not? The dream sounded far too familiar. Too close to his own. The voice. The threat. The demand. They wanted more children. And suddenly Jake understood. If he'd been given the same choice, he probably would have done exactly what Aiden had done. Not because he wanted to. Because he was terrified. I don't think it was really Casey. Jake lowered his voice. It was something else. Something wearing Casey's face. Aiden nodded. I know. His voice was barely audible. What do we do now? Jake stared at him. There was only one answer. I don't know. The rest of the day disappeared. It passed in fragments. Classes. Lunch. Voices. Hallways. None of it seemed real anymore. Before Jake knew it, the sunlight outside had begun to fade. Then supper was over. Darkness started creeping across the windows. Jake thought about asking his parents if he could stay at Aiden's house. But it was a school night. Thursday. There was no chance they'd let him sleep over. So Jake went upstairs alone. And prepared. If whatever had come through the cemetery run wanted him, it was going to have to work for it. He locked the window. Then checked the lock again. He drew the curtains completely shut. After that, he hung silver spoons from the curtain rod. He'd heard somewhere that monsters hated silver. He didn't know if it was true. He didn't care. He wrapped wire around the window latch until it was difficult even for him to move. Then he locked his bedroom door. He dragged his desk across the room. The chair went under the handle. He stepped back. For the first time that evening, he felt almost safe. Almost. Jake curled himself into a ball on his bed. He was exhausted. His eyes burned. His body ached for sleep. But sleep was the last thing he wanted. He knew what waited for him there. A window. A voice. Casey. Or something pretending to be him. Jake promised himself he would stay awake. All night if necessary. He would figure this out. He would find a way to make it stop. He just couldn't fall asleep. Because if he did, something might enter his room. Something might crawl through the darkness. Something might take him. The hours dragged by. Slowly. Painfully. Jake sat upright against the headboard, forcing his eyes to remain open. He watched the clock. 11:14. 11:27. 11:41. The seconds seemed to crawl. It was strange. During the day, time had vanished almost instantly. Now, every minute felt endless. Then the clock changed. 11:59. Jake stared at the glowing numbers. His grip tightened around the baseball bat. Resting across his lap, he waited. The final minute felt like an eternity. Then, 12 a.m. Midnight. Jake held his breath. Nothing happened. For half a second, he almost laughed. Maybe he'd been imagining everything. Then the clock flickered. 12 a.m. The numbers vanished. Then returned. Vanished. Returned. Like the power was failing. Jake looked around the room. The lights were still on. His lamp was still glowing. The hallway light still shone beneath the door. Only the clock was malfunctioning. Jake slowly sat straighter. His fingers tightened around the bat. "Who's there?" His voice sounded small. He hadn't expected an answer. He got one anyway. "You locked your window, Jakey." Casey's voice. Empty. Dry. Rotten. It didn't come from the window. It came from everywhere. The walls. The ceiling. The floor. Inside Jake's own head. Who are you trying to keep out? Jake's heart pounded. You. He forced himself to stand on the mattress, baseball bat raised in both hands. "I'm keeping you out." For a second, there was silence. Then laughter. Soft at first. Then louder. Then louder still. It came from every corner of the bedroom. As though there were dozens of invisible people packed into the darkness. Laughing together. "You can't lock a door on guests, Jakey." Jake's mouth went dry. "And you've already invited us in." The laughter stopped. "You took our trade." A pause. "Fair is fair." Jake shook his head. "No." His voice trembled. "No, please. Please leave me alone." His voice broke into a whimper. For several seconds, nothing answered. Jake's eyes darted across the room. The curtains didn't move. The door was still locked. The window was still secured. Everything looked exactly as it had before. Then, something touched the darkness beneath his bed. Jake froze. A soft scraping sound came from underneath him. He looked down. The space beneath the bed was completely black. Too black. He couldn't see the floor. He couldn't see the wall. He couldn't see anything. Something shifted beneath him. Slowly. Once. Then again. Jake's breath caught in his throat. Oh no. Casey's voice whispered from beneath the bed. We can't do that. The mattress creaked. We need your bones. Jake tightened his grip on the bat. And sinew. Something scratched against the floor beneath him. Slowly. Deliberately. Don't worry, Jakey. The voice sounded almost affectionate. It won't hurt for long. A pause. Then. The voice changed. Lower. Colder. Closer. It will hurt forever.